NDIDI UKAONU.
It's okay. Olumide said you do the hard things. Hello, platform. Really excited to be here. Truly, truly excited to be here. Especially our first platform entrepreneurial summit. And we have to thank Pastor Kojo and Pastor Toyin for the brilliant job that they continue to do with this nation. And now they're putting the spotlight on not just entrepreneurs, but on intrapreneurs. Beyond the intrapreneurs, beyond Pastor Kojo and Pastor Toyin, I want to salute the team behind the platform. 35 editions. I expect your applause to be louder than that. 35 editions. And what is so beautiful is how they pull it off with excellence each and every time. We salute you. So it's an incredible honor for me to be invited back to the platform. And truly, I don't take it for granted. This is an incredible stage. This year, we saw the theme, Wealth Builders. And what this did for me was to bring top of mind some of the conversations I had been having with myself that I would not dare voice. But guess what happened? About, in the space or span of about a year, one of the questions that I asked myself privately, someone asked me openly. Laugh, because I'm about to ask you the same question. And it just seemed to open a gusher. So I want to open your own gusher. Okay? Where is my pointer? Okay. Does this work? Okay. There. Is Jacka a product? Let's go. Before you start to think and say to yourself, how dare you? How dare you suggest this? We need help with this, please. I'll tell you about this book, and I'll recommend that you do read it. The Mystery of Capital by Hernando de Soto. This book was published in 2000. I happened to read it about 4-5 years ago. But the summary of what he says to me is captured in this picture. An architect has set the landscape for a space. He has set footpaths properly, and one crazy guy decides he will walk on the green. But if you look closely at this picture, what you discover is this is not the only person who has been walking on the green. They have walked on the green so much that the grass there is suddenly what? Dead. But you know what our typical response is? We dive in and we say, put up a signboard. Anybody who crosses here, 25,000. Say, no, leave that one who will be monitoring it. Let's just get wrought iron. Let's build around it so that nobody will pass. Seemingly correct, right? But Hernando says to NDIDI, if everybody saw the footpath and chose to walk on the green, what is the message that they are sending? Is there a lesson here? Is there something we can do better? Stay with me. And so, with that kind of thinking in mind, I continue to approach that question. And as I think about that question, I'm reminded of the Philippines. That's a country that experienced Jacka. 160 million people, about 10% of their population in diaspora. $38 billion annually in remittances. Remittances are essentially the money that your people abroad send back home, and it's part of what helps development, contributes to your GDP. But this is what is very interesting about the Filipinos in diaspora. Their area of concentration is their nannies, domestic help, nanny nation. They rank 4th on the remittance table. And then I'm still thinking, Hernando says, disrupt your mindset. And then I confront India. India's Jacka problem, though widely known, or problem if you still think of it as a problem, it's not as bad as the Philippines. India barely has 3-4% of their people in diaspora, 1.4 billion people, 32 million estimated in diaspora. Number 1 for remittances, $125 billion going to India every year. And what are these guys known for? Tech and medicine. So if you know a lot about the Indians, you know that they own the medical space, the NHS in the UK, correct? A lot of what people don't trace back is, how did that come about? These people, like the Filipinos, they actually did transit into the UK, and if you remember, they started to own the corner shops in the town. And it is those corner shop owners that trained their children with a particular preference for medicine, and years later, what did we find? They have owned an industry in a foreign nation, correct? Stay with me. But what's the story about technology? The story about technology for India started in 1950. When India decided, I used to think that this school was one school, 2 campuses. The Indian Institutes, with an S, of Technology, decided to designate schools that were focused on training for engineering and technology. What is so interesting about IIT is that the Indians consider this and rank it higher than the Ivy Leagues, Harvard, MIT. They believe that you only go to MIT if you don't make it into IIT. It's not a shocker, because this school has produced some greatest of the greats. The current CEO of Google is an alumni here. One of the co-founders of Infosys, and if you work in the bank, right? Infosys is the one producing Finacle, the software that a lot of banks use. Former president of SoftBank is an alumni of this school, and we can go on and on and on. So I ask you, Nigeria, you will give me my time back or calculate the time for pressing. So I'm thinking, what then is Nigeria's strategic advantage? What can we be deliberate about? And remittances are the usual go-to for measuring the success of the people in diaspora. But let me tell you one of the things that people do not see or talk so much about. China started by, you know when we used to say made in Taiwan? And when we said made in Taiwan, we meant inferior goods. Inferior goods became superior goods. Superior goods made so much money for that nation that nation is acquiring American corporate assets offshore. You see how that money that they made, from first being looked down on, they are emerging to take over even Africa. I understand that they were in the bid to take over the publisher of Forbes. Today, the Chinese own the largest theater network in America. We've talked about the Filipinos. We've talked about India with tech and medicine. And I'm saying, Nigeria, how can you be deliberate? Easy, easy, easy. It's not what you think. It's not what you think. It's not what you think. Okay, so is Nigeria Arsenal? Is Nigeria, you remember when Arsenal used to take these young boys and train them, and everybody would come and buy from Arsenal, and they were never winning a trophy. No, Pastor Kwaji said, let's use Liverpool. But I'm saying, like the Indian example, perhaps we need to look at Jacka as a product. They built this technology thing knowing that their people would travel, but they understood long-term the benefit. Can we be a bit more deliberate about Jacka and see it as a product? Behind Jacka is Jakpada. And if we build the Jacka product properly, Jakpada will come back if we become the training hub and train the people who are left, and we have a good cycle. Maybe in the future, we too, like the Chinese, will start buying up half of America. But that's not the one that is bothering me today, really. There is a core, the impact that Jacka has on us as a nation today. The center of most corporate organizations is brittle. You know, a lot of times we hear there are no jobs anywhere. Most people outside, young people will tell you, I cannot find a job, I have been trying. The people within organizations will say, we cannot find people. What you are hearing is that the core of the organization, the middle management, where we pass culture, where we pass experiential knowledge, where we pass all sorts, where we groom the next set of leaders, is failing. And we are not churning out as we should. But guess what? Even having this problem, we are still losing people and saying, oh, you know, people have to retire at 65. We already have a problem, and then we're letting people who could address this issue exit the system. Let me position this properly for you. Do you realize that major corporates today are responsible for over 40% of your nation's GDP? If this breaks, we're in trouble. So, NDIDI, what are you then saying? What can we learn from intrapreneurs? Okonjo Iweala, one of Nigeria's more celebrated finance ministers. She's 69 today. At about 66, or she'll be 70 this year actually. At about 66, 67, this woman battled to become the CEO at the World Trade Organization. Colonel Sanders, that's the gray-haired gentleman, is the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken. How many of us know that brand? All over the world. He founded KFC at 65. Mae Musk is the mother of Elon Musk. She is a global supermodel. She's currently about 72. Walked her first runway for Vogue at 67. Alan Greenspan, the equivalent of the CBN governor for Nigeria, chairman of the Federal Reserve, exited that role as CBN governor at the age of 80. And then there's a picture there, and people want to ask me, is Pastor Kojo an intrapreneur? We will own him by force, but I will prove it. You're in great company. I will prove it. Did you read that scripture that said, what I hear my father I do not do of myself? He's an intrapreneur. God owns the church. He's working for God. But let's focus on what we can learn. I think we've heard bits and pieces about the Covenant Community Group. Honestly, the next time they advertise it, join, oh, it changed my life, I have to tell you. It did. And I'm not promoting it because of the Covenant Nation. It is one of the most significant things, if not the most significant, that happened to me in the last 10 years. And I was asked by, and interestingly, he's here, my friend Bukumi. He invited me to speak to the Middle Managers Community Group on a topic called Career GPS. And that's how this model was created. I will speak quickly to this model, and then we'll rush to round up. For the benefit of the people in the room. So your career really is in two halves. What is very strong about this model is your first half, my dear, you are a sower. The way people dive in to go and take money, somebody has spoken about it today, want to chase? No. You are sowing to reap. You are getting more from the organization than you are giving. Calm down. And in the next half, you are dictating your pay because the organization wants the skill that you have. But what I think you must hear, if you hear nothing about this model, is what I call work currency. We often go to work with the sense that we go to exchange skill for money. It doesn't quite work like that. Especially OC said it. What do you have to offer? At the entry point, you don't have anything. What you have is humility. You exchange, I mean it. You exchange humility for skill. You exchange humility for skill, and then skill for money. And Adam Grant, the celebrated behavioral psychologist, he says, you know, nobody came to take your self-esteem. Humility is just awareness of your strengths and your weaknesses. But very importantly, the first rule of improvement is you recognize room for improvement. So take note of that, and then we continue with our model. So today I want to focus on the, you can see what is blinking. And I want to challenge some stereotypes. Our career is in two halves. The second half, we think of it as sloping down into retirement. But the truth is, retirement is not a must. It's a choice. We sell it like it's a must. But the examples I have shared with you, all those people, maybe except Pastor Koju, would have retired by the time they founded anything. And so we will not have Kentucky Fried Chicken that we have today. We will not be enjoying certain things that we're enjoying. There are 3 things that are the possibility in your second half. Retirement by choice is fine. You can get to a peak and coast like Okonjo Iweala, who is still going strong. Or you can get to what you thought was the peak and realize it's an anticlimax like May Musk and just take off on a new tangent. And I'm not just speaking to the old. If you're young today, you need to start to take that decision. I've started to hear people say, much older people though, I will never retire. And that's something that I embrace. And I will explain why. Okay. Our children are well due, but you see how she's still doing her own. You know, when my grandma, now I figure she was probably 55 or less, she looked like this woman in the picture. I beg, see 60-year-olds now. Ibuku Awoshika, Moabudu, and these women are powering. Then you want to tell me that these people have only 4 years left? My nation needs them. They have to stay in the game. And when you think about it, you know, the more I researched this, it was very interesting what I found. Harvard Business Review. This one I will quote. People who are 65 or older now represent the fastest growing segment of the labor force, by far. Companies will need to think in creative new ways about how to engage these workers and make the most of what they have to offer. I don't think I need to add any commentary. It's Harvard Business Review. It's not me. But here is what NDIDI is going to say to you. Think about it. People are at the peak of knowledge, at the peak of experience, at the peak of skill. They will argue about disposable income, but they don't have new house they are buying. They finished training their children, most of them. So I dare say disposable income. And then look at the yellow line. We're about to exit them from the workplace. I think these are our new generation wealth builders. New generation means the dispensation in time. It has nothing to do with your age at the point in time. So, what do I say to the people who fall in this bracket, who have been saying to themselves, what have I done with my life? I'm about to exit the scene. I say, no, your nation still needs you, especially now that Jacka is almost breaking the middle. Transcend and reinvent. That is how you stay relevant. Data still supports my point. And I hear these days that 30-year-olds, 30-plus-year-olds are crying that they've not achieved anything in their life. I don't understand you people. At 30, you probably have 40 more years. Okay, I agree, right now you have not achieved. But I'm saying to you, there is still more to do. Nigeria's KFC still needs to come out. And data says to me that startups, the age of the average startup founder is 45. Now, these are startups of the fastest growing companies. And the older entrepreneurs are more likely to succeed when they set up a business. You've taken my slide. I can't see it anymore. Okay, so you're looking at the right thing. So you will find value in your second half. Don't collapse. Next slide, please. You will find value in your second half, don't collapse. And why is that? Even, I'm always quoting Maslow, right? Maslow, after his death, additional work was published where he moved the peak of the pyramid from self-actualization to self-transcendence. And what is self-transcendence? And I think Olumide was speaking to this when he spoke. It is when you start to walk where your life is making meaning for others and it's no more about you. As I begin to close, I want to pay ode to Molade Fasheru. Molade was my colleague. Molade's funeral was a master class for NDIDI. Molade passed at 46. But at her funeral, then it emerged that Molade had created something she called the Grace Ladies Initiative. And she was impacting women all over the world. I had been invited to speak there once, and there were women from America, Canada, London, everywhere. Molade personally took over an orphanage and catered for the children till she died. We only heard these stories after her passing. So what am I saying? You don't want to wait till you're old to start to exercise this transcending mechanism. Work has provided that opportunity. Start today. And finally, people say to me, oh, NDIDI, you know, what are you, should we be working? We should continue working until, what are we making money for? I mean, you're finished training your children, then what next? And I say to everyone these days, I'm living a lie. I'm living for legacy. I'm living for impact. I'm living to be an example to my children, and by extension, everyone who calls me mama. You still have so much to give. An African proverb says, the time a man wakes up is his morning. So if I have spoken to you today, regardless of your age bracket, if you're one of those people who've been mourning what is not lost, you are exiting the work scene when you still have so much to do. Permit me to say to you this morning, wake up, it's morning. You are the one who says it's time. You are the one who calls time on yourself and nobody else. Thank you.